Welcome back, everyone. Today I bring you round 7 of Open San Sebastian, a tournament that I played in Spain last month. In this round, I got paired up against Guillermo Santos, a 2014 rated player. And when I played 2000 plus rated players, I really get stressed out. I really get nervous because I never was able to win against a 1000 plus rated opponent or even draw. So it's always very exciting and nerve wracking to face them because I really want to win or at least draw. But okay, my opponent had white pieces. He started with d4. I went d5, c4, and I took on c4. The Queen's Gambit accepted. The first time in this channel and in my journey to National Master. Definitely, I've never played it in a classical game. Played it in a couple of blitz games in tournaments over the board, but just it's really rare for me to face these d4 c4 setups in tournaments. Everyone goes for either e4 or just random London or whatever type of opening. But I've been studying the Queen's Gambit accepted for more than 3 or 4 months. I think I started studying it at the end of last year, 2022. So just finally got an opportunity to test it out, and let's see how it went. So my opponent went e3, went knight f6, bishop takes on c4, e6, knight f3, c5, castles, and a6. And I went through these moves pretty fast because this is pretty much the main line of the Queen's Gambit accepted. This is literally called the classical main line of the Queen's Gambit accepted. This is probably the most common / popular position that you will get if you play the Queen's Gambit accepted as black and you kind of follow the main lines. So there's other options for white, which I think they are even more tricky to deal with as black, which is for example e4 here. Also play knight c3, trying to go e4. I've had people playing in actually a rapid tournament over the board. I had someone playing a4 actually here as well. So there's a lot of options for white, but my opponent decided to go for the more classical mainline approach. And after a6 we have pretty much the start of the variation here. White has a lot of possibilities. It's a very rich, dynamic, and interesting chess position. Here my opponent went b3, which I looked at his games to kind of prepare a bit. He never played b3 actually on the database, so I was kind of out of book. And in general, even though I've studied quite a lot, like there's so many moves. When I tell you there's so many, I'll just go through a bunch of them. Like here, after a6 there's a4, there's b3 like my opponent played, there's knight c3, there is rook e1, there's queen e2, there's bishop e2, there's even takes. Like there's a lot of moves, and knight b2 as well. So after b3 I decided to go very logical with b5 here, and after bishop e2, bishop e7, just attacking the bishop with tempo and developing my light square bishop. Here my opponent played bishop e2, knight bd7. Here I played knight bd7, but I think you can also probably play knight c6. Here my opponent goes for a4, and just my opponent was blitzing out everything. Like he was really well prepared. I have to say that I was out of book. I was on my own after a6, so I was pretty much on my own after move 6. But okay, it's fine. a4. Here I went b4. You can also take, it's really a matter of taste, but I went b4. My opponent goes knight bd2, and here I take on d4, which I ended up regretting quite a lot, and you'll see why. But my idea with taking on d4 was that I didn't really want him to take on c5 and force me to waste another tempo to take back the pawn. Let's say I went bishop e7. I didn't like the allowing this option of white capturing on c5, and now I have to waste a tempo to capture the pawn, probably knight takes. And yeah, I just felt like I was just you know, kind of wasting time, and I was still not yet castled, and I didn't really want to allow that. Although after taking on d4 here, I allow his knight to become a really good piece on the d4 square. And now after bishop e7, I still just wanted to castle, and I felt like everything was fine. But yeah, my opponent plays rook c1, and yeah, I start realizing that maybe it was a serious mistake, or you know, maybe you can call it inaccuracy to take on d4, because now my opponent is already threatening something along the lines of knight c6, forcing me to take the knight and give up the bishop pair, because with knight c6 my opponent forks the dark square bishop and the queen. Here I play rook c8 to try and I was trying to contest this square and try to keep it under control. And here my opponent plays a brilliant move that I completely got shocked me. Shocked me a lot, this move, which was bishop f3. And after bishop f3, I realized that my opponent was a really strong player, because bishop f3 makes so much sense and it's so strong. The point is that pretty much my opponent is still fighting for the c6 square, and when we trade light square bishops, I lose a defender of the c6 square, and this square is very weak and I really need to maintain control of it, otherwise my position will probably collapse. And bishop f3 just challenging and trading this important bishop for my defense is just incredible. And here, you know, I was already spending a lot of time trying to, you know, figure out how I would finish my development, and I came up with rook takes on c1, and after queen takes on c1, bishop takes on f3, knight takes on f3. So yeah, we get this position, and here I spent at least 20 minutes trying to figure out a move for me. And yeah, it was really hard, because my opponent still has the same threat of knight c6, and I really can't stop it, because he has 1 + 1 = 2. He has 2 pieces fighting for that square, and at the moment I have 0. So yeah, he's winning that square. And the question is how I deal with this. I can't just castle, because yeah, he just plays knight c6 and it's just completely dominating the position. So here after 20 minutes I come up with, I think, a really nice move, bishop c5, and my opponent goes knight c6 and I go queen a8, and this was my point. I finally was able to break out of this knight c6 threat. Okay, my opponent was able to play knight c6, but it didn't fork any of my pieces, and now I am almost castled. I just need one more move and I'll be able to castle. Here after queen a8, my opponent played knight back to to e5, and here, you know, I played knight takes on e5, which is very weird. Um, yeah, I don't know why I didn't castle here. I should have just castled, and here the computer just claims equality. I was afraid of something, definitely. Not quite sure what I was afraid of after castles. I don't know, maybe something like knight takes on d7, and after knight takes on d7, I don't know, maybe I was afraid of something like knight e5, although there's nothing to be afraid of, because after knight takes, you know, my opponent doesn't really have queen takes on c5, doesn't do anything, because I have like this forking the two pieces, and after something like bishop takes on e5, I can just go back to e7, for example, and I should be fine. But yeah, for some reason, maybe also I was afraid of something like rook d1 or something like that, putting pressure on this knight that is defending this bishop. But yeah, there's really nothing going on in this position after castles. But okay, I take on e5 first, my opponent takes with the knight, and now I definitely can't castle because this bishop is hanging. So yeah, I go bishop d6, my opponent goes knight c4, and I go bishop c7. After rook d1, I just castle. And okay, my opponent can definitely just take here, and after takes, he's probably like better, but the worst is over, at least for the moment, because this position is way better than what it was a couple moves ago, in my opinion. But okay, my opponent didn't go for this. My opponent played actually queen a1, and you know, I haven't mentioned it a lot during this video, but at this point in the game, on move 22, I was already pretty low on the clock, and when I say low, I probably had at this point like 10 to 15 minutes. And the thing is that my opponent still had like 1 hour and 20 minutes, or like 1 hour and 22 minutes, something like that, ridiculous. Like, I was here just, you know, spending all my time on the clock to figure out the position and try to figure out how I could like just you know, develop and try to challenge him. And he was just blitzing all his moves and just, you know, giving me that look of, oh, this is so boring, like, come on. But yeah, I was just feeling completely hopeless. I was just feeling very demoralized, very, you know, frustrated, because it's always hard when your opponent is just blitzing out every move and you feel like you haven't done anything like wrong, like nothing like huge, or maybe like a mistake or an inaccuracy, but Jesus, like, I didn't blunder any piece, I didn't blunder any pawn, and I'm just under so much pressure, and I feel like I'm getting completely outplayed. And yeah, that definitely was really hard to deal with and to just accept during the game. So yeah, here after queen a1, good move. My opponent is threatening to take twice on f6, and here I managed to find a nice move after thinking for some time, which was rook d8, best move, trying to challenge his coordination, his pieces, trying to trade, get you know, alleviate the pressure. And my opponent here took on f6, and for a moment I thought that he lost a piece, which is just wrong. He just took on f6, so he's not losing any piece. Here I take the rook on d1, he takes back, and I take on f6. And we reach this position where my opponent played queen d4. And I was like, Jesus, am I still like losing? I was never actually losing, but I really felt like completely losing at a lot of points because of just me being so behind in development, playing queen d8, which I think it's, in practically speaking, is a very bad move, although the engine doesn't really mind it, because this endgame that happened in the game is just very rough. Like, this knight is a monster on c4. It can't really be challenged because I have dark square bishop. His king is gonna actually arrive first. His pawn structure is intact, and yeah, this minor piece is just way better than mine in this position, and yeah, it's gonna be rough holding this one, but let's see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I just, at this point, I played queen d8 because I really didn't have much time on the clock, and I had to make a move. My opponent, as I said, still had like 1 hour and 20 minutes around that time, and I was down to like 6 minutes here probably after I played queen d8, and yeah, I just thought that maybe I could hold that endgame, and with queens on the board I thought that, you know, there was a high chance of me just losing to a tactic or losing a pawn here, losing a pawn there, and it would be very, very difficult, with my king also being way more unsafe than his king. So okay, we get this endgame, we start bringing the kings in, and it's already frustrating here that I can't really play king d6 because of this annoying knight, so I have to go to d7, and after king d4 by my opponent, I go king c6. My opponent goes knight d2, starts rerouting the knight. Go bishop b6 check. My opponent goes king c4. I go bishop c5. My opponent goes knight f3. And here I play h6. I don't really know what I was doing with h6. I just didn't really see any way of making progress for me. I just felt stuck, and I just felt like I was waiting to lose. I was really hopeless at this point, and yeah. So here my opponent goes a5, fixing my pawns, and I go bishop d6. My opponent goes knight d4 check, go back to c7, g3, protecting h2 that I was attacking, and now after king b7, I really just don't know what to do. Maybe I could go f5, but this doesn't really do much, right? And I can't approach b6 because of a5. Very nice move. I can't go to c6 because the knight is blocking, is just controlling that square. My bishop also doesn't really have targets because I'm not able to, you know, go behind his pawns. I have to keep an eye on b4. The only piece that really can keep an eye on b4 in this position is the bishop. So yeah, I'm just completely hopeless and stuck. My opponent just, you know, slowly but surely just crushed me. I just had to sit and wait. And yeah, after a few more moves here, I finally resigned. And yeah, it was a very tough game to deal with mentally. I just felt like completely crushed again, just like in episode 74, which was round 5 of this tournament, San Sebastian. I just felt completely crushed, and yeah, I felt like I really couldn't you know, create chances. I felt like worse throughout the whole middle game slash end game, and yeah, it was just very demoralizing to just get destroyed like this. Especially, like, I don't mind losing or getting outplayed, but what I do mind is getting absolutely crushed while my opponent is just not spending time even thinking. It's just blitzing out every move. And yeah, it's very frustrating, but something that I have to deal with and learn to accept that sometimes your opponents will just you know, crush you like that. But yeah, it is what it is. We move on. I knew that this journey would not be easy, but maybe one day I will be able to crush these 2000s like they are crushing me now. But okay, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.